kids are getting pretty wild in there, man. Is that safe?
Yeah, they're fine. I've got their keys.
We're going to go ahead and get started, everybody. We're going to start off where we left off yesterday, talking about the Americans before the sea.
Hey, have a beer, man. You deserve it.
It's not worth it. Underage drinking risks everything you're working for.
Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the Safe Streets meeting here today at the Great Overland Station. I'm Chris Schultz. It's a pleasure to have you all here with us to make Topeka and Shawnee County the safest capital community in the country. Let's give yourselves a round of applause for being here today. All right, I would like to first start out by welcoming our first new member, David Thompson from Community Action. Let's make some noise for him. And we'd like to welcome all of our visitors here today. If you're interested in signing up with the coalition, please talk to Judy. She's right in the back of the room. She'll be happy to get you signed up. It's free, and it's very awesome to be able to stay in what's going on with our community. Now, it gives me great pleasure to introduce Trey George to give you this month's tip of the month. He loves that applause. I can't. There we go.
Thank you, Chris. And how's everybody doing today? Good, fantastic. Quiet group today. June's crime tip of the month is truthfulness. It is important to be truthful in all your dealings and report information accurately to each other and to law enforcement. Good neighbors emerge by being honest. One of the things that I know personally means a lot to me. For those of you that don't know, I grew up here in Topeka. I moved away for about 10 years to a much larger city, and I really enjoy being back. And people always ask, you know, what did I miss? And the great thing about Topeka and the size of community that we have is that there's a certain level of accountability, and people, you will see each other again. And so what I found is that people are more apt to be truthful with one another and to do what they say they're going to do. So I know, to me personally, that means a lot, and one of the great things about being in Topeka. One of the favorite quotes that I always liked is by Mark Twain is, if you tell the truth, you never have to remember anything. And that is good for somebody like myself that doesn't have to remember anything if I tell the truth. So try to do that. I'll turn it back over to Mr. Schultz. Thank you. Who also loves applause.
Thanks, Trey. All right, and now it's time for our press conference for the Champion of Character. Please welcome Cindy Patton and the Character Council up to the front of the room to your roaring, thunderous applause. We need that.
Well, it looks like we don't have very many members of our Character Council here today, so I'm going to go ahead and make this presentation. I'd like to call up Michelle Maney and Margaret Price to come forward, please. I think as you'll notice, these two people are staff at the Helping Hands Humane Society, and so they were both nominated for their work with our four-legged friends. As the strength of our nation is dependent upon the health and safety of its communities, the strength of our community is dependent upon the character of its citizens. The Kansas Character Recognition Council of Topeka, Shawnee County recognizes Michelle Maney. From the moment an abandoned animal comes into the shelter, Michelle is one of the first faces it sees. The animal is met with compassion and hospitality as it receives the care and love it needs. Michelle Maney assesses each animal's needs and adoptability in the Topeka area. When an animal is not the right fit for the surrounding demographic, she uses her resourcefulness to reach out to rescues and other shelters across the region to find placement for them. For the lucky animals that get to stay with Helping Hands Humane Society, Michelle coordinates the dozens of foster families and sometimes over 150 animals to be kept up to date on in foster homes. Without her drive to get them into temporary homes, many of these animals would have to wait in kennels until they were eligible for adoption. Demonstrating compassion, hospitality, and resourcefulness makes Michelle Maney a champion of character. Now, we have a different award for Margaret. You can stay up here. As the strength of our nation is dependent upon the health and safety of its communities, the strength of our community is dependent upon the character of its citizens. The Kansas Character Recognition Council of Topeka-Shawnee County recognizes Margaret Price. At Helping Hands Humane Society, Margaret Price has seen it all: the abused, neglected, unwanted, or lost and broken spirits of the animals that come in, to the joys of seeing animals reunited with their families. Through the years, Margaret has persevered to meet each animal's behavioral needs and get them adopted. She leads training classes for volunteers to help the shelter animals learn skills and behaviors necessary to put their best paw forward for potential families. Margaret may work in an animal shelter capacity. She has faith in the people she interacts with as well, giving them a second chance when needed. She has welcomed folks who have made mistakes in the community and initiated animal training programs with the residents of local correctional facilities while encouraging the positive growth of those that have completed their time. Demonstrating compassion, perseverance, and faith makes Margaret Price a champion of character. I think we learned a lot, didn't we? Do you have anything you'd like to say?
Thank you. And I appreciate this. And I also like to accept it also for all the admission staff that I work with and help us out with all the animals too.
Thank you very much. Okay, and be sure and get your nominations in. Okay. Anyway, get nominations into us. You can go to our website, topekacharacter.org, and make nominations so we can continue to recognize people who are doing great things in the community. Thank you.
And one more, okay, we like this applause. One more for all the volunteers and staff of the Helping Hands Humane Society for all they do. All right, and now we've got a little business to get taken care of. We need to approve the minutes for May. We'll look for a motion from the floor to do that. We have a motion. Do we have a second to approve the minutes from May? And second, all in favor of approval, say aye. Opposed, same sign. All right, and the minutes are approved. Please welcome the Executive Director of Safe Streets, Miss Christy Pankratz, right up here.
Hi, how's everyone doing today? Great. Well, Safe Streets has had a little bit of a busy last couple months, which we are looking forward to. We have some trainings coming up and meetings that you can see up there. We are getting primed for National Night Out. We have 71 neighborhoods throughout Shawnee County who are signed up to participate on the big event on August 5th. For those of you who may not be familiar, National Night Out is celebrated once a year with neighborhoods celebrating together. It's basically block parties throughout our community, and what we really do is encourage you to get involved in your neighborhood. If you're not sure if your neighborhood has one signed up, give us a call, talk to Judy, we can get you hooked up with it. We have a lot of organizations who support this, from Hy-Vee to Reesers to Frito-Lay, providing food, providing materials. Our friends at Topeka Metro help us out too. Hi, Pam. Our friends in law enforcement are so supportive of this event that we're just really looking forward to it and encourage participation. One of the things about National Night Out is that a lot of people think it's for neighborhoods with high crime. It's not. It's for every single neighborhood in Topeka and Shawnee County to participate. We really want people to connect to each other because that's how we make our community better. So that's really the overall goal, and encourage you to consider doing that this year if you haven't already. One other thing I'd like to do is highlight, how many of you know that there's a Safe Streets Wichita? Any of you know that? couple of you. Safe Streets founder here, David Fulton. Any of you remember that name from a while ago? Back in 1995. He has now started one in Wichita. Brandon Boyd is here from Safe Streets Wichita, so give him a round of applause too. We really have a lot going on with different neighborhood watches and things like that too. So if you're interested in getting your neighborhood involved, just really encourage you to do that and to reach out to us. We're happy to help, go anywhere we can and do whatever we can to help make our community better. With that said, I will turn it back. Oh, there is also one handout on your tables. There is a drug take-back day on July 15th. Encourage you, if you have any unused medication, to consider getting rid of it that way. A lot of partner agencies are involved with that initiative. So I will turn it over to Chris now. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Christy. All right. And now please welcome, we're going to start our partner updates. Please welcome Mike Cope from the Shawnee County Parks Police. He sat in the back of the room so you could give him more applause. So there you go.
Good afternoon. I just come back from Arizona the other day, and summer's definitely out there, and driving around the parks and everything since I've been back. Summer's definitely hit out here. Our parks are full, which is good to see. A lot of people out utilizing them. Along with that, that brings some more complications and things for people to be aware of. A lot of them are not any different than what we would do any other time that we're out in the public. Ladies, you love your purses, you take them wherever you go. Some of the things to think about if you're going to like the lake to walk around, either condense the stuff, an ID, a credit card or something, and take that with you and leave your purse at home, or hide it prior to getting to the lake, so somebody's not watching you, put it in the trunk of your car, and knowing that there's going to be an opportunity when you walk away to break into your car and steal your purse. Same thing for the gentlemen out there with your wallets. A lot of the gentlemen will go out running and stuff. They'll take their wallet, they'll set it in the center console or reach across the vehicle of and put it in a glove box. Well, if somebody's watching you, they're getting a pretty good idea of what you're probably doing. So when you run off, there's a good opportunity that you're going to create an opportunity for them to take your items. Other things that you wouldn't necessarily think of that are items that you may not think of much value, but they look like them. A beach, kind of like a beach bag purse thing. I've worked calls where a lady had a similar thing in it, and all it had was bottled water in it. They saw it, thought there was something valuable probably in it, like an oversized purse. They broke in the car, ended up getting a couple bottles of water, but now they've got damage to their vehicle and stuff like that, it's just more headaches that you have to deal with. So secure them items so that they're not visible, they don't bring that opportunity. And our slogan that we use here, lock it, remove it, or lose it, is definitely a thing to consider. Another big issue that we have during the summer months is we start having a lot of family picnics, family reunions. Now, I raised 5 kids, I have 15 grandkids. Them kids can move around pretty fast. It's really hard to keep track of them. So please, when you're at the parks, especially at the lakes and stuff, watch where your kids are. Keep a good eye on them. One of the worst things that I have to do is go out and investigate a drowning, which we've had. And we've actually had presentations here for people that have made rescues and saves. It's a wonderful thing to be able to recognize them, but it's even better if we don't have to recognize them. Boating and other rules in the parks. Whenever you go to a park, whether it be Lake Shawnee or any of the parks, Perry Lake, find out before you get there what the rules are at that particular park. Not all parks necessarily, especially the community parks, follow the same rules and regulations as the state statutes do. So get to know what requirements are out there. Does anybody know here that at Lake Shawnee, from April 15th to September 15th, there is no wake boating from approximately the Paddle Boat Cove south A lot of people don't pay attention to that. Now you're putting risk because you have paddle boaters out there, you have fishermen out there, you have ski boats flying down through there, causing turbulence in the water, which really affects our kayakers or everybody out there. So please observe the rules, know what the rules are at the parks before you get there, and always follow your water safety. If you're going to be around the water, your kids are going to be in water, you know, even if you're not in the boat, if they don't know how to swim, put a life vest on them. Even if they're on the shore for the kids, put a life vest on if they're going to be around the water. Make sure that you meet all the state requirements. And another thing is orange flag requirements for skiers. There's a lot of confusion on how that's supposed to operate. A lot of people will, when they're pulling the skier, they'll be flying that orange flag. The orange flag is only for the time when they're down in the water, when that skier is getting ready to be pulled up or they have actually fallen back into the water. That's when that flag is supposed to be displayed. That way it will bring notice that, okay, there's somebody down in the water here. We need to be watching out. The other boaters need to be watching out for that person. If the flag is always hanging, you just kind of become numb to it. And some other things is obviously the contact numbers, especially for the lake area. Obviously, if it's an emergency, 911. Non-emergency calls, you can call the non-emergency dispatch number 251-9300. Park Police also have a phone number for the duty officer, and that's 806-1567. A lot of times we're answering questions to people. A lot of times, you know, it doesn't require calling 911 or dispatch. They can just go ahead and get a hold of the officer. We'll go ahead and respond and try to resolve the situation. And Parks and Recs also has a phone number, 251-4243. It's a phone number that you can leave a message. It's for maintenance issues in the parks, other issues that don't necessarily require law enforcement attention, or it's something that you just want to let us know about that you don't need to call the other numbers for. But there's that usually goes to the outdoor, one of the outdoor superintendents, and then he'll relay the information out to the appropriate people. So them are some contact numbers that anybody can utilize. I hope I kind of opened up some eyes and stuff, and if anybody has any questions. What number did you say to call for problems in the parks? That will be 251-4243.
Thank you very much. And now for an update from the Topeka Police Department, please welcome Manny Munoz, who loves the applause. Got to give him a minute.
Thanks, sir. Okay, first of all, I got to tell you a little bit of story about Mr. Trey here. As most of you guys know, we have our community officer. All the community officers have an office over at Deer Creek Community Center. The other day I went up there and the trash can was broken. And so summertime has come and the kids are using the center a lot more. So as any typical kid, even if it's broken, they'll continue to put trash in there even if it's full and it's puking. So they broke it. I went over there and did the nice thing and went to pick up the trash till I bent over and picked up a can of some drink or something, and a huge spider came out. When I say huge spider, to me it looked like this. It was this big. So I went inside and I told one of the guys, by the way, I hate spiders. So I went and told several of my guys, hey, come on guys, help me go pick up the trash. And so they all volunteered. I told them, I said, hey, just be careful because there's a spider in here. None of them would touch it. If you guys have seen all my community officers, they're big, burly, 200-plus-pound guys. There were 5 of us that would not touch the trash because there was a spider in there. So I had to call my friend Trey here, and he sent one of his great employees to come and pick up the trash for us. Thank you, sir. That's my story about Trey. He saved the community officers. Okay, as far as your crime stats, these are all our violent crimes. The number that, obviously they're all up except for the rapes. That one is actually down by 1. Most of our violent crimes are up. Our homicides are up. Our robberies to businesses are up by 2. But if you notice right there where there's a number 29, 8 of those are as a result of shoplifting. Robberies to individuals is also up. Our aggravated assaults and batteries, they're up by 20. But 46 of those, right there where the 170's at, 46 of those are related to domestic violence. Okay? Let's go. As far as our property crimes, everything is, all of the numbers are coming down. Our burglaries to businesses are down, our burglaries to residences are down. The only one that always kicks us in the behind is our auto thefts. That number has gone up, but I can tell you right now, and I told you guys a couple months ago when I came down here, we had an auto theft task force that the chief implemented because of all the numbers that we had of stolen cars. There's several of those people that right now are currently incarcerated. There's one individual that's looking, I can't remember, but over 150 some months. Hopefully he'll be gone for a while. Another individual, even before we put the cases that the task force put on him, he's already going to prison for 3 years. So with those two guys, and they were a huge, huge problem in our auto theft. But all of the numbers are coming down. What I like is that bottom number is minus 237. That's bringing the numbers down. We like that. We've gotten quite a few calls about thefts of license plates. If you have problems or you know anyone, we have the screws that you can put on there with the drill bit, so it makes it more difficult. I'm not saying it's going to make it, theft proof, but it'll make it a lot more difficult for the, license plates to be stolen. Just don't lose your drill bit, because then you can't get your tag off of it either. So, okay. We did a program with Badge Buddies with the Williams Magnet School. Officer Strickland, gentleman over here on the right-hand side, he is one of them that wouldn't go touch the trash because he's scared. But you can see he's one of my great big guys, but he is a lovable, he's got a great big heart. The gentleman that's there in that picture, he had problems with transportation to his graduation. He went and picked him up and his mom so that they could attend the graduation. Go ahead. We also did the torch run with Special Olympics. Several of our community officers took part in that. I didn't, because I don't like to run. And if you've seen my skinny legs, I don't run much. But we did that, and we had a great time. Unfortunately, it got cut short because we had a storm coming in, but all of the athletes had a great time with it. We also attended the Midland Care Hospice celebration walk for survivors of cancer. Some of our community officers actually went to that one, had a good time. And our next thing, we will be doing a coffee with the cop at McDonald's. There's been some questions when people attend whether we can change the hours, because there's a lot of people that can't attend on Friday mornings. So this one, we're going to be doing it at 29th in California, June 14th, and we're going to do it from 5:30 to actually 7 o'clock at night for those people that want to attend. If they're Friday mornings, they have to work or whatever, we're doing it, and we're also changing it over to the east side of town. Any questions for me? Concerns, gripes? Thank you.
Thank you, bro. There's a spider right over there. You might watch that. Thank you very much. And please welcome Sergeant Coffin from the Shawnee County Sheriff's Office for our Sheriff's Update.
I hope you're not applauding the last name. I'm sorry. I'm Sergeant Coffin with the Sheriff's Office. I'm responsible to oversee the Crime Scene Investigations Unit and our Property and Evidence Room. I'm just going to tell you a little bit about what we do and then some stats as far as my unit goes for the year. Go ahead. We get called to property crimes, burglaries. Most of the burglaries that we work are in excess of $10,000 financial loss or more. Any vehicles that are stolen, we usually get called out to process those as well. We get called out to arsons in order to assist the State Fire Marshal's Office. And any person crimes that involve an aggravated circumstance by use of a weapon, we get called out to document and collect the evidence in that. Fatality accidents, serious motor vehicle accidents with injuries, any unattended death, pretty much any death in Shawnee County we respond to and document, except for something involving a hospice situation. accidental deaths, suicides, and homicides. When we arrive, our main goal is to document by photography, sketches, forensic documentation, and narrative descriptions. Our main goal is to get there to collect physical and trace evidence so that we can make a forensic connection between the scene and a suspect that's involved. We cooperate with several different agencies, most commonly the KBI and the FBI, to do all of our testings for us. We collect latent fingerprints and DNA samples, coordinate with the KBI to get that stuff sent over. Occasionally we work with Topeka Police Department to get fingerprints back a little quicker. First responder is going to be from the patrol division. Most commonly, they're going to get there, secure the scene, deal with suspects, rendering aid if they need to, starting a crime scene log, gathering as much information as possible so that that information can be relayed to us for importance when we get there to know what to target and focus on. We're essentially going to do the same thing that they did, just from patrol when we get there. We're going to coordinate with detectives, and we're going to determine if a search warrant is necessary or if we are allowed access into the house without the need of the warrant. And then we're going to go in, evaluate, and decide what gets priority as far as scene processing and collection goes. What we do takes quite a while, but as far as we're concerned, time is our friend. When something like this happens, we have pretty much an unlimited amount of time, so we're very slow and methodical in our documentation. We digitally document everything to preserve the scene as it was when we arrived, because we're never going to get that back again. And we also coordinate with the coroner's office. If we respond to a death scene, the scene in and of itself is my jurisdiction, but the body or the decedent is the jurisdiction of the coroner's office. We search and document, collect evidence as it's found. Anything that we can't see, we'll go ahead and utilize other sources and chemical agents to develop that. Again, we're slow and methodical, and we work in close partnership with the detectives to determine what we think is important and what they believe they might need in the future. We're looking for all these different things. Anything and everything can be evidence, so if we believe it's connected, we'll collect it, store it, and test it. There's some combating efforts as far as latent fingerprints go when we're called out to the community. There is a transfer of latent fingerprint on pretty much everything you touch, but collection is not always possible. If you touch something that's covered in dust and we apply dust to dust, it's usually not too successful in lifting a fingerprint, but we can document that digitally. AFIS quality. The photograph on the right is going to show a little bit of smudging. We're not really going to be able to get too much from that fingerprint through AFIS. AFIS is a national database for fingerprint identification. So we're looking for something that's a little more clear, like on the left there. Shoe prints are valuable. People wear a lot of gloves, but they like to kick indoors. So we can do a gel caster or a gel lift from a dusty footprint on a door. Or if it's left in sand or mud or any other environmental condition, we can cast that material and send that off for identification as well. Same thing applies with tire tracks. Projectiles, anytime we have an incident involving a firearm, my main goal is to collect the firearm, the fired shell casing, and the projectiles so that we can send all that off and match it together. If not, I would prefer to have the projectile other than the shell casing so that we can ballistically match it to the weapon. Trajectory we kind of focus on in scenes just to find out the position of fire from the suspect, or if it should be an officer-involved shooting. We can identify the angle of which it was fired from and a rough distance from where that original round was taken. DNA we collect as much as possible. It's a more reliable source than latent fingerprints. So we will search for anything that could possibly be left by the suspect. We're going to contact the owner or the victim as much as possible in regards to whatever circumstance so that we can verify whether they left that or it was a suspect. We're looking for saliva, any other bodily fluids, and blood. When it comes to blood, it doesn't matter if it's a wet or a dry substance. We'll collect the sample, we'll send it off, we'll get the same profile or multitude of profiles from that sample. Several things are left behind at the scene of a crime that is not readily identifiable to the naked eye. So we'll add some chemicals to the scene and we'll use an alternate light source to try to identify that material so we can collect a sample. Just more photographs of the alternate light source. As far as my unit goes for 2017 so far, we have, death scenes, we have responded to 13 natural deaths, 2 suspicious deaths that were rendered medical after autopsy, and 5 self-inflicted gunshot wounds. Vehicle accidents, we've worked 3 fatality and 3 serious motor vehicle accidents. Burglaries, we've worked 7 residential/business with over $10,000 financial loss. We've worked 1 simple and 6 aggravated batteries and/or robberies. We do lab examinations for our agency as far as latent fingerprint development and DNA collection. We've done 20 of those to assist in ongoing investigations. We've done 2 case-sensitive autopsy documentations, assisted in 2 investigations related search warrants. We do 4 evidence transfers to the KBI per month. As far as case images, we have taken a total of 4,138 images. Most of those are from the field and casework. As part of the property room, we have intaken 1,428 items of evidence since January 1st and destroyed 1,466. My office is covered Monday through Friday from 9 to 8 p.m. And beyond though, we cover the 5,876 hours of standby, just to make sure that we have 24 hours of coverage per year. Any questions? Nothing? All right, thank you.
Thank you, Sergeant Coffin. All right, now it's time for our special presentation on crime prevention through environmental design. Please welcome Officer Jason Dunderdale.
Thank you. We have a slideshow. There it is. All right, I'm Jason Dunderdale with the Community Policing Unit, Topeka Police Department. I'm going to talk to you about crime prevention through environmental design, or CPTED. And that's the idea that the proper design of the built environment can lead to a reduction in crime, or a reduction in the perception of crime, and the enhancement of the feeling of safety and an improved quality of life. When we think about it, it's kind of common sense. If you're in a nice, comfortable environment, you're going to feel better and you're going to feel more confident and more comfortable. And the hope of that is that we will reduce crime and the way people feel about it. There are 4 basic principles of CPTED. There may be 6 depending on which school of thought you use. But in general, they're natural access control, natural surveillance, territorial reinforcement, and maintenance. And I'll discuss each of those individually in a moment. Each of these principles is interlocking and overlapping. Each concept, it supports the others, and each contributes to the others. And some items that we do for CPTED will fall under multiple of these concepts. And so what that means is care has to be exercised in implementing one strategy that supports one of these principles at the expense of others. An example of that is building a 10-foot high wall with razor wire to enhance your territorial reinforcement and to block access to a space, but it destroys your natural surveillance. It destroys your sense of wayfinding or the desire for casual users to use your space. So the first thing that we're going to talk about is natural access control. And the idea there is that your built environment will guide folks into the spaces that you want them to use. The main entrance to your building is easy to find. The parking is easy to find. It's easy to navigate it in a vehicle or on foot, whichever is appropriate. Some of the pictures that I have here, the one that's on the top left, that's an illustration of how landscaping was used to prevent people from cutting across the corner there. It used to be grass, and there was a nice path that was worn out right across the corner. So there's a nice diagonal dirt trail right through that. And so somebody had the good idea of, instead of trying to keep grass there, why don't we just put down mulch? We'll keep it nice and uniform, and folks can walk through that. So that's a natural access control element, and we'll find also that it's a maintenance element too, because instead of having to go out there and replant grass and wait 6 weeks for it to grow, you can send your gardener out there with a rake and he can fix that mulch if people did walk through it and start to cut a path. On the next slide is a little bit more about natural access control. Another thing that it does is it does block access to spaces where you don't want folks to go. On that picture on the left, you see that there are those columns And those are designed to keep a vehicle from going past that point. And that can be a really important thing to do if you have a counterterrorism thing that you're trying to keep in mind. If you're concerned about a vehicle-borne explosive and you don't want folks driving a car up close to that so that they can blow up the building, you'll want to do something like that. And then also the use of circular driveways like that allows an opportunity for cars to approach your building and drop folks off that are going to go there. But then it also provides them a good way to get out. We see this at schools and places like that all the time. Natural surveillance is a really interesting concept. It's one of my favorite things about CPTED. And it's design features that increase visibility, and it increases the sense of seeing and being seen by everybody. And that includes legitimate users, so the patrons of your building, your business, your school. But it also increases the sense of being seen by criminals. And if a criminal feels like they're going to be seen, that means that there might be witnesses to the crime, and it may change their mind about committing the crime. And so we like to use strategies that will increase natural surveillance. And so to discuss the concept of the fence, using a fence versus a wall, if we use a fence that you can see through that's attractive, then people who are outside can see in and can see what's going on, and people who are inside can see out and see what's going on. And the idea there is that the legitimate users feel comfortable and illegitimate users feel uncomfortable. And a good example of a CPTED-friendly fence is actually the one that runs just north of this building along the train tracks. It's just a wrought iron or a steel fence. It's got the vertical beams. And so it provides a nice fence line, and it's very clear that there's a fence and that it's there to do a thing, and everyone knows what it is. But it's not ugly. You can see through it, so you can see what's going on the other side of it. On the next slide are some more things about natural surveillance. Again, the use of open space, the use of windows to allow users of the space, legitimate and illegitimate, to see and be seen. Territorial reinforcement is the sense that a space has a designed and designated purpose and that somebody owns it. And so that, again, this is one of these concepts that supports another, and that's, it's supported by maintenance and it supports maintenance. By showing that a space is owned, that it's cared for, that it's designated, that there's something like a fence, that there's something like, the yard is mowed. We show that, somebody owns it, somebody cares about it, it has a capable guardian. And if we remember there are theories of crime that say a crime will occur when there's a motivated offender, a vulnerable target, and a lack of a capable guardian. Territorial reinforcement gets right at that capable guardian element of crime. On the next slide, some of the examples of strategies to enhance territorial reinforcement are landscaping, paving, fences, and signage. Maintenance kind of ties the whole thing together. Without good maintenance, you lose many of these aspects. If you don't keep your trees trimmed, you may lose out on territorial reinforcement. If you don't mend your fences, then you may lose out on natural access control. And there's different kinds of maintenance also. There's physical maintenance like painting and fixing and replacing light bulbs, but there's also order maintenance and ensuring that there are things to do on your space. If you have a park and you want people to come to your park and you want them to have a picnic, then you can install picnic tables, and those picnic tables need to be kept in good order so that folks know what to do in your space, such as have a picnic. Or if you have a volleyball court, you keep the sand nice, you keep the net in good order so that folks come there to play volleyball and not do other things that you don't want them to do. On the next slide are a couple of examples of maintenance. We know from the broken windows theory that if graffiti goes up, that folks are going to see that and they're going to assume that graffiti is acceptable, and they'll put up more. And next thing you know, you'll have a wall that's covered in various different types of graffiti. So if you do the proper maintenance, and as soon as graffiti goes up, you do what you do to abate it, either by scrubbing it off or painting over it or something, then it sends that signal that it's not tolerated. In the other photograph, you see a yard that's all grown over and the house is poorly painted and it looks like nobody lives there. It looks like if a burglar wanted to go in there and try to steal the copper and the scrap metal, that nobody is probably going to be home to catch them in the act, and nobody is probably going to be there to make a police report, and they're probably going to get away with it. So if you're the property owner of that house and maybe it is vacant, it's important to go out and do the maintenance and keep it up and send the message to everybody that somebody does own this house and somebody does care about it. There are a couple of other issues that go along with SEPTED, and it's perhaps another way of looking at it. And there's designation, definition, and design. On the next slide, designation is stating that all space has a purpose. And so we aim to designate our space, and we want to make sure that we can limit and minimize the amount of undefined space. Otherwise, folks are going to define the space for their own purposes, and that may invite illegitimate users to come and use your space. An example of that is along the Shunga Trail near 21st and Washburn, over by Shunga Glen Park. There's a huge space that was all wooded and overgrown, and so there were informal trails that people had started to cut through there just by walking through, riding bicycles and whatever. Homeless folks started going back there and camping in that area. Kids would go out there after school and smoke marijuana. So it was an undefined space. There was little maintenance that was being done in that area. And so illegitimate users went in there and defined the space themselves. Or designated the space themselves. And so we'd like to designate a space for ourselves. Definition talks about defining the parameters of the use of the space, doing things like putting up signs. When we talk about posting our parking lots to say that all city ordinances are enforced, the hours of the parking lot, who to contact in case of an emergency, we're defining that space, and we're saying it belongs to an individual, and these are what we expect out of this space. It also goes along with order maintenance, as I discussed earlier. Design is the actual use of design elements, and oftentimes this is something that has to go into the pre-planning either of the building itself or the space itself, or if it's going to be renovated, we can take some of the SEPTED principles into the design. An example of this is the picture on the left is the Nelson Atkins Art Gallery in Kansas City, and there's a reflecting pool in front of the building, and the reflecting pool's in the middle of a circular driveway, and so it creates an area where folks can go and drop off the patrons. If you're taking a taxi or whatever, if the husband's going to go drop off the wife so she can get tickets while he parks, whatever. And then there's an underground parking structure beneath this, and so the reflecting pool is attractive and it defines that circular parking area. But if you look carefully, you may not be able to see it in the image. There are actually small circles in the middle of the reflecting pool underwater, and those are actually skylights that bring natural daylight into that underground parking structure to increase the natural surveillance in the underground parking area. The next page is an image that I got off the internet, and I would love to source the image, but I don't know. It's on every SEPTED webpage that you can find. Somebody came up with it and everyone stole it, including me. But it's a good illustration, in my opinion, that shows some of the elements of SEPTED, especially natural surveillance. And it talks about the large windows provide an opportunity for casual surveillance of the street grade below. The porches on the front of the residences encourage neighbor making and coalition building between neighbors. The paving of the walkways provides opportunities to know how to approach the house, not to cut through the yard, not to hide in the bushes. This pedestrian scale lighting, and obviously there's a sidewalk there, and we want to have folks walking on that. We want to have them feel comfortable, so that there's lighting installed there that's for a pedestrian scale, and I'm going to discuss that in a moment too. And then the fences are nice and low. They don't create a visual obstruction. The hedgerows are nice and low, don't create a visual obstruction, but they define the space nicely. The next slide talks about the scale of lighting. And one of the things, and I've seen this in a couple of different properties around town, lighting needs to be built to the correct scale for the type of traffic that it's going to illuminate. If you have a pedestrian walkway, and you're not going to experience any vehicle traffic, and so your highest speed that people are going to be traveling through that area is like 5 to 10 miles an hour, then lower height lamps is usually sufficient. 12 to 16 feet is just fine. However, the higher speeds that folks are traveling, if they're in a vehicle, they're on bicycles or in a car, your lights need to be taller. And so this 16 to 30 foot, that's good for like the surface streets in the city. And then if you'll notice on the highway, the light poles are 75 feet high, and that's because cars are going by 75 miles an hour. And it's not quite a correlation of 1 foot high to each mile an hour, but it's something like that. The faster your traffic goes, the higher you want your lights to be. On the next page, talking about lighting, there's another important element of lighting, and that's the color rendering index. And color rendering index is kind of a complicated concept, but it's also really simple, and it's a way of measuring how true and accurate the colors come through when they're illuminated by a type of light. And there's all kinds of lights out there. There's the metal halide are lights that a lot of the street lights use. They also use a lot of high pressure sodium. And so if you look at number 1, it's a pretty good representation of the light. But if you look at number 3, it's really yellow. And then if you look at number 4, I don't know if you can even see the number 4, but it's the one that's orange. And then fluorescents usually have a very high color rendering index. Color rendering index is measured from 1 to 100, 100 being the best. Anything over 75 to 80 is really where you want to be, and much lower than that, you start getting distortions in the color. I know this as a police officer who's worked third shift, I've experienced this firsthand where I saw a car go by, it passed under a street light, I'm certain that the car is green, go get in the chase with the car, get to the termination point, and come to find out, that car is blue. And that's the result. That's what happens there. And so one of the best solutions for this, of course, is to use LED lighting, because LED provides a 100 color rendering index, and the lights are tunable. You can change the color, you can change to an extent, you can change what the light does in terms of what angle it comes in at. You can definitely change the intensity, and they require less energy to run. However, they are more expensive to install. On the next slide, just a little bit about what the Topeka Police Department does with CPTED. The Community Policing Unit does offer a CPTED assessment as a service that we can provide at no cost. We will send an officer out who will do an evaluation of your property, take photographs, interview some people, look at some crime stats, and can put together a presentation with some recommendations on how to reduce crime or the perception of crime. Contact the Community Policing Unit to do that. And on the last slide is my contact information. Again, I'm Officer Dunderdale with the Community Policing Unit. Sergeant Wilson's my sergeant. Sergeant Munoz helps him supervise me sometimes. And so there is all of our contact information. If you'd like to have CPTED done at your place, please call us and we'll see what we can do to help you out. Does anybody have questions? Yes?
I've got in our neighborhood, we've got a couple of houses that are just mailing.
Yeah.
Cars and stuff.
Right.
Is that come under the purview of CPTED?
It does and it doesn't. CPTED isn't really an enforcement measure as much as it is a crime prevention measure. So, abandoned cars or junk cars on your property, it's either a police issue or a code issue. And there's a couple of different factors to figure out how that works. But to get that solved, you can certainly contact community policing and we'll get it resolved. You can contact me, and if you want to take down my number, you can call me and leave me a message about it, and if it's in my area, I'll deal with it, and if it's not, I'll refer it to the officer who has that area. Yeah, mine's the upper number, 368-3135. You're welcome. Anything else? All right, thank you very much.
Thank you very much. All right, well, we would like to thank you all so much for coming out. A reminder, our next meeting, we're going to be skipping July, so come back on August 2nd. Get that down on your calendar. We'll be here at the Great Overland Station. Please be sure to sign in on those yellow sheets so we know you were here. We can get you the information about today's meeting. And also, please fill out the surveys, the orange sheets, and so we can know how to better serve you with this meeting. Thank you so much for coming out here to make Topeka and Shawnee County the safest capital community. And you can check this out on City 4. Thank you so much for those guys for coming out to make sure that our whole city can be aware. Thank you, folks.